improving. I read that the Bereans were more noble than the Thessalonians. Why? Not because they took some blind leap of faith, but because it says they examined the scriptures daily to determine if what they were being told was true. And I had to say to myself, this does not appear to be a God who's asking me for some sort of blind, irrational faith. This is a God who's asking me to love him, yes, with all of my heart and my soul and my strength, but also with all of my mind. And I remember reasoning to myself that if God made me and if he made me with this mind, he would want an honest intellectual search to point in his direction. And time again, that is exactly what I found until I found myself on my knees in my dorm room, 122 Jolene Hall, overwhelmed by the truth of Jesus Christ, overwhelmed by the love of Jesus Christ, and surrendering my life to him joyfully. One more detail of my story before we move on to today's topic. A few years ago, I was speaking somewhere and I shared some of my testimony. And when I was done, a woman came forward and she looked like she was fighting back tears. And she said, "Did you say 122 Jolene Hall, the college dorm room in which I gave my life to Jesus?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, I'm about 15 years older than you, but I lived in 121 Jolene Hall, just next door." She said, "And I spent my 4 years in college praying for the salvation of the guys in 122 Jolene Hall." She said, all these years, I thought God didn't hear that prayer, but as you were sharing your story, I just knew in my heart that God had answered my prayer word for the salvation of the guys in 122 Jolene Hall. And then I got emotional to think that 15 years before I ever considered turning my heart towards God, he had a woman literally praying for the wooden floor on which I dropped to my knees and gave my life to him. And I hope that encourages some of you who have been praying for things for a long time that maybe you have not yet seen come to pass. God is always doing more than we can see. Never less. And I also hope that encourages some of you who maybe don't usually come to church and are thinking, what in the world am I doing here? It may be a surprise to you. It is not a surprise to God. And he may very well have had someone 15 years ago praying for the very seat that you are sitting in right now because there's something that he desires to do in your life today.